the objects that capital constitutes as objects take their defective shape and identities where Marx seeks to translate among these designation conventions. Capital's system is simultaneously a designating and a translating machine. The work that capital's system does, a fall. This is a complicated proposition. It's not clear that a fall is a work, but that paradox is crucial. The first of these characterizations of the identification machine in Marx can appear trivial. Naturally, capital designates its objects, the concepts it is exploring. Naturally, some principle of translation or of generalizability is entailed in capital's project. Capital's concepts, labor, value, the money form, are sufficiently coherent and sufficiently distinct that they can be the subject of well-formed statements or phrases. To this very extent, they are sufficiently independent of the circumstances of their enunciation to be translatable between situations, disciplines, and lexicons. To say that production is identical with consumption is to say that the value of the product, the commodity, can be entirely expressed in and as its consumption, with no residue or defect. To say that Defoe's unimaginative fantasies can become eponyms, Robinsonades, and that they can thus describe states of affairs beyond Robinson Crusoe's island, for instance, the economic situations that Smith and Ricardo imagined, is only to say that works of fiction can be used allegorically across and among concrete, determined contexts, and also to suggest that better allegories for states of affairs can be supplied by other works. But this is not the sense in which translation and designation systematize and move the identification machine in Marx. It is not how capital works, as we may already suspect when we consider generally the unequal translatability of common nouns, proper names, and indices. How does one go about translating a proper name? Surely not in the same way, if it is even possible to imagine translating a proper name, as one would translate the term table, or the expression this table, or this phrase, Spinoza's phrase, the one that I am citing. And so, proper names are not translatable in the same way as phrases involving common names or phrases. Before I tack into the work that Marx's machine does, a few strokes to suggest just how odd this machine must be. For any claim regarding the system of identities that is at work in these drafts of the Grundrisse, the claim that there is a system whose shape and dynamics have yet to be described, will commit us eventually to a definition of system, to defining the relation between system and discipline. A discipline in general, and in particular the nascent or emerging discipline of political economy, defined here against both classical economics and literary production. It will commit us to judging the relation between capital and this system or discipline, and it will commit us to assessing the historical and conceptual constraints that these definitions entail. Without this level of analysis, nothing we propose, no sentence we utter regarding Marx's argument will be more than anecdotal. But matters are tricky already, for there is no immanent concept of system or of discipline on which to lean when we read these works of Marx's. None that precedes the work that the identification machine does here and throughout Capital. Or rather, there are plenty, piles of them, strong, coherent concepts of system and of identity within system that Marx has before him, and which he draws from the natural sciences, from philosophy, mathematics, religion, and politics. Capital, however, is not only a critique of political economy, it is an effort to articulate a concept of system, and hence a concept of systemic or systematic identity that is not based in the reflexive, mutually constituting relation between instance or fall, or case and class. Spinoza's phrase, inasmuch as it is Spinoza's phrase, inasmuch as the phrase is attached necessarily to a proper name, to this proper name, and inasmuch as it is also a common name, a common enough noun, a common enough property to circulate namelessly as a coin in the conceptual economy of the middle 19th century, this provides Marx with the discursive register, with the defective concept of system and the correspondingly defective system of concepts that will form the base of this articulation. I opened this talk, this is now the ending, so you can rest. I opened this talk considering the classic form of identity that Marx finds in the philosophy of political economy and which underlies static propositions concerning static or self-identical objects. The catastrophic fall from the machinic autopoetics of such disciplinarity and into overproduction and overvaluation disrupts the disciplinary circle, yes. But disrupting this circuit runs a danger. Yes, Marx's critique of political economy puts in its place a weakly systematic field of defective and dynamic concepts, catastrophically related, suffering in the shadow of the index. But if, as we are accustomed to understand, disciplinarily determined concepts travel, translated on the wings of agreed norms and abstract value forms, money, the subsumed labor value form, across languages, markets, and frontiers, then how, if at all, will Marx's dynamic because defective and defective because dynamic objects travel? How, under the accelerating regime of global capital, will we translate the dynamic objects necessary for gathering together, thinking and modifying or displacing the catastrophe of capital? In my next talk, on Wednesday, I will turn to the text of one of Marx's greatest readers, Louis Althusser, to suggest how the incompatible logics of nominalist and realist indication work dynamically to over-determine the analysis of the accelerating regime of global capital and also to under-determine it. What befalls in translation, in translating names, in translating a particular name, in this case, though I won't really talk about it on Wednesday, the name of Joseph Stalin, this produces not just a surplus of surplus value, but catastrophic debt, unforgivable, disabling, and permanent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your excellent, yet very dense presentation of Marx's notion of objects. I believe there are a lot of problems and questions for your presentation. So let's open the session of the Q&A session. 我们现在就是大家来评议和提问吧。我们有非常好的翻译，王青，青年学者王青来给大家做翻译。你们可以用英文，也可以用中文来提问和评论，好不好？我们就是就开始吧，好吧？
I have a question for myself. One of the terms that drops out of this talk is the term matter. Right? I asked at the beginning of the talk whether I'm moving away from considering Marx a materialist and toward considering him more of a philosopher of objects. And certainly my talk moves away from thinking about matter to talking about objects and to talking about names and very abstract forms of objects. So my question for myself is, what happened to matter? Where is matter finally here?
他跟自己提了一个问题，说这个讲着讲着好像没有谈到那个有一个关键概念没有谈到，就是物质这个概念。By the way， 我在那个译文里面把 object 翻译成对象，而不是翻译成课题。其中一个重要的理由就是在他的讲座那里，如果说课题的话，它有一个主体客体的这个二元对立，这个印象很深的，而它恰恰是要在别的意义上，它不在这个二元对立的框架内来谈论课题，因此我把它翻译成对象。日常语言里面我们会用对象，比如说你有对象吗？这个，所以对象这个词是我做的一个译法，但他这个问题是关于物质 matter。他说他在演讲刚开始的时候说要将马克思从一个唯物主义就谈论物质的一个哲学家的身份那里移开，把他作为一个谈论对象的哲学家来看待。谈着呢，好像说这个关于名称啊，关于抽象概念啊，谈很多这些 objects 这些对象。那问题是，那如何理解物质在马克思那里的地位跟意义呢？就是他到最后，他始终好像是在谈对象，但是没有再回到关于马克思关于物质的讨论上面。
Shall I answer my question? Or you, maybe one of you wants to answer the question. So the answer, I think, to that question is this: that we go back to the description of the relation between matter and object that I gave you. If you remember, the baby at the breast this is a little story that I take from the psychoanalysis of Melanie Klein in particular. So the baby at the breast has no sense of an object yet. Its relation to the world is of a kind of fluid continuity with the world. Jim, you should tell me when you want to. Okay? It suddenly perceives the world as other than itself in the moment when the mother says, "No, that's enough milk." When you've had enough, and the baby's desire is no longer immediately satisfied. At that point, the world becomes a world of objects. Before that, I was saying, you might imagine the world as a world of matter, that is undifferentiated, with no cuts, no incisions, no particularities.
然后他说，对于这个问题的回答呢，他说，关于物质跟对象的关系啊，他在演讲当中通过小孩的那个例子，他从那个精神分析家克莱恩那里借来了这个例子。他说，小孩跟那个母亲的乳房之间的有一个关系，这个关系在他母亲跟那个小孩说可以了，到此为止，你应该断奶。那当这么说之前，这个小孩跟这个世界的关系都是一种流动性的，没有区分的那个关系。但突然他母亲说好从此开始就断了，你就不要喝了。从这个时候开始，整个世界就像那个小孩呈现为是一个那个我们说客观的世界，客体的对象世界，对象的世界。如果说之前那个是物质性世界的话，由这个母亲的这个禁令别喝奶，之后是那个对象性世界，所以它这两个是世界，是它区分开来的一个常识。
Is it kind of thinking of matter a Bergsonian way of thinking,
yes.
or delusion?
It's Bergsonian primarily.
Okay. 我这个说一下这个，就是我问他这个对这种那个物质的理解，是否是一种这个伯格森式的理解，还是德鲁兹式的理解？他现在怎么回答？
他说是那个伯格森式。
My own intervention is to say that is this: I set up the undecidable relation I was calling it between nominalism and realism. Res sunt consequentia nominum. Things are the result of the names, and names are the result of the things. And I said that this is an old battle in the history of Western philosophy. And I said that classical political economics is a discipline in which this battle is still being fought, but it isn't aware of it. Whereas Marx's contribution is to make that undecidability and that battle into the core, the explicit and deliberate core of capital, of the analysis of capitalism. My further suggestion is that the problem with both nominalism and realism, res sunt consequentia nominum, things are the consequence of names, names are the consequence of things, is that they preserve a distinction between the name and the thing. That Marx undoes. He says that the name and the thing are different, but the difference between the name and the thing is not understandable. Right? And that is where Marx's materialism lies. Right? Marx's materialism lies there, in that moment. And so Marx is not a materialist of stuff. He's not a materialist of labor as stuff. He's a materialist of the undecidable relation between names and things in the world. It's because there is an undecidable relation that there is matter. Matter is the violence of that undecidable relation. That's a very weird definition of matter. Matter is the violence of the relation of matter is the violence of the undecidable relation between names and things. Nobody would agree to this, but it's true.
他说他介入这个问题的方式，之前说的是一种伯格森式的对物质的理解。关键一点就在于，他举出那个唯名论跟实在论那个论证来说明这一点。在唯名论看来，他说这个事物是名称的结果，而在实在论看来，名称是事物的结果。他说这两个古老的论辩，他们之间事实上两者的关系是一种不可决定的关系。这个让这点非常重要。他说唯名论跟实在论的争论，你可以在古典政治经济学那里就找到他们的延续。但问题在于呢，古典政治经济学没有意识到说他们事实上唯名论跟实在论的争论在那里已经持续着，而马克思是意识到了这一点，并且马克思将唯名论跟实在论，将名字跟事物之间的不可确定的关系放在了他对于资本分析的核心位置。这是马克思非常重要的一个贡献。然后他说，进一步来说，唯名论跟实在论的关系在于，他们保留了古老的关于名称跟事物的那个分辨、那个区分，因为他们区分名称跟事物，而在马克思那里这一区分也被消解掉。也就是说，在马克思看来，名称跟事物之间的分别，它们的差异，名称跟事物的差异本身是不可理解的。你不能够明确的说这个是名称，而这个是它所命名的事物。这个名称跟事物之间不可理解的关系，这个东西它称之为马克思的唯物主义。也就是马克思的唯物主义那个物，指的不是实实在在可触的物，也不是劳动力，而在于这种物质就是这种不可名和物，名称跟事物之间的不可决定的关系，这种暴力的不可决定的关系，这是马克思的唯物主义者的。